Okay, how do you learn to be yourself when you perform, but you're not really very outgoing? Bang, tick, bang, tick, bang. Hi guys, this is Mark Black, and this is Mark Teaches Music, my channel, and this is our weekly Q&A, which is to play and sing, and this is episode 82. So this is all about getting people equipped to play and sing the music they love, and so I'm convinced that you can make the music that you like. So we're looking at technique and skill, how your personality affects everything you do. Music theory, how to improvise, working on stage fright, working in different kinds of bands, choirs, orchestras, jazz bands, leading them or being in them, all kind of styles, blues and jazz and R&B, pop, classical. I can teach you to play the Chapman stick. I'm kidding, I can't do that. So instruments, voice and bass and piano, fretted instruments, sax, arranging, orchestration, how to practice, how to develop your ear. So I want to help you fix the things that are holding you back, really. So bring all your questions and we'll learn amazing things. Hey, TDB. So if you're watching this after the actual live stream, be sure and post questions in the comments, or you can email me at mark@dallasmusiclessons, and I'll try to bring that up. I don't see why I wouldn't bring that up in the next session. So that's a great thing. So get right to the two things today. Now, last week I did these. We had these horrible audio issues where everything I was doing was going. It was repeating. I obviously had two sound sources coming from somewhere, but I don't know where they were. I couldn't find it. So we're redoing them, but I'm sure that you didn't see the first one. So the first one today is the statement, and so you do not have to read music from notes, or you don't have to play from notes, and not read music and not play from notes to understand everything about music theory completely and to play well. That is, you can understand what secondary dominants are and plagal cadences and the sharp 9, sharp 13, on and on. Let's see, just anything of that you can understand without reading notes. And so that is a fact. And I want you to be encouraged by that. If you don't read, please be encouraged by that. You don't have to read to understand music. And so I have a degree. Wait a minute. I have a degree in the oboe, which is hard to get any more classical than the oboe, truly. So I am, wholeheartedly like yay reading, yay classical, all that kind of stuff. But I came to music from country music, acoustic rock, praise and worship songs, singing with my family, just sitting. I'm 10, I'm 9, whatever. And then, got in band, concert band, and eventually jazz band and orchestra and woodwind ensembles and chorales, vocal singing. And I'm talking about, it's like, and obviously, A, you learn to read, but then B, is like, oh my gosh, this is the only way I'm getting out of this is to read well. And then after that, it was kind of got back into, rock bands and praise and worship bands and jazz bands. And man, this is my life. I'm saying it. So it's like, man, theory is helping me so much to chart these songs and to play these songs. Wow, this is really great. All this stuff I learned is really great. And it took me about 25 years to get to where I put two and two together, and I said, well, wait a minute. I can completely understand music theory and use this, what I'm hearing. That's what music theory is. The scales used, the chords used, without ever reading a single note. So I'm kind of eventually looking at, this chart I'm playing, not the woodwind quintet, not the Bach chorale I'm singing, but the rock piece I'm playing on the guitar or something, or the praise and worship I'm playing piano on and singing. I can play this without reading a single note, and I am doing it. And just by the way, if we took all the music, the great sum of music, of all the kinds of music, and let's just stick with Western music for the moment, it'd be like literally, I hate to say this, but like 2% of all the music and all the musicians are reading from notes. If you want to say who can read notes and who, but are not using it, maybe we could make it 3% of great musicians, can read from notes. But the number that are reading from the notes is probably 2% of all the things. So anyway, I finally came, full circle to realize this, and I want to show you this real quick. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right, there we go. So this is actually and literally the same as this. That's the same thing. Let's put an A on the end to make it look symmetrical. There we go. So that's the same thing. So the notes up top, are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Ta-da! And guess what? The letters on the bottom are the same dang thing. And they're the same. And so I can tell you, and you can learn a scale, a chord, whatever, just by the letters. You can learn Mixolydian mode by the letters. And I don't know what percentage, a fair number of you are like, well, of course. But a whole bunch of you are like, you're kidding. And, and you reading notes, not intentionally, but becomes a barrier. So we're talking about understanding. For understanding the scale, the key, all these things, you do not have to read notes. So those things are equal. So I'll just put it back up here. These are two equal things if we're trying to understand. That's the method of understanding. So this, starting to teach like this, I think I'll talk about this in a second, but it removed a stumbling block for students. And the point is the instruments, the students, the instruments, the styles of music that are never going to need to play from notes to be amazing. It just helped them so much. And so let's just look at a minute. Who does need to read? Who needs to read? Now, again, people come with their preconceptions and I'm fighting for classical. I'm fighting for jazz. Whatever. And that includes me. I'm a jazz musician. I'm a classical musician. So anyway, so who needs to actually read? So you're in an orchestra. You're in a concert band. You're in a jazz or stage band. You're in a middle level to pro difficulty choir, where there's lots of all these things where there's lots of parts and details. You have to have definition. There's 20 to 100 members in this group, and there's 10 different parts, and you can't just say, "Hey man, go for it. Hey man, how's it feel to you? What's the groove here? This is Latin or something." So most orchestral instruments must read. Yes, violins need to read. Usually, do all of them? No, depends on what they're playing. Saxophones, trumpets. I'm saying they usually need to read, and so they should read, so they're not shutting themselves out when that comes up. So, classical guitar styles. Classical guitar, classical mandolin. Studio musicians in L.A. and Nashville and New York. Like high profile people, and that this includes and they're making commercials, and the guy says, I want this to be the lead line, and I want these harmonies, and certainly playing in musicals in the pit, and absolutely making movie music, Tommy Tedesco, it's like if you're going to be, playing the theme song to Shaft or to MASH, with the orchestra there, you got to read and you got to play it correctly, because they had something in mind. I'm just saying these things have to be played by note. But guitar, almost all guitar, bass, fretted instruments, the ukulele, most mandolin playing, do not need that. And the reason is this, and I want you to see this. So here I have my handy flute, one of my handy flutes. I have many handy flutes, but so I want you to watch my fingers. I know I'm not going to zoom in on them. I'm going to play this slowly. Watch this change. This is the G flat or F sharp major scale. watch me play the G major scale. Different fingers. And the A flat scale, another different set of fingers. So, yes, there were notes in common. Let me just hold this while my prop. Yes, there were notes in common between those scales, a few notes, but many more notes were different between each scale. And so the learner on this instrument and on the trumpet and on the tuba and etc., it's like he can't say, well, that scale's the same. He could say that, but he knows that intellectually, still whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. But for him, it's like, well, that's good to know, but I got to use all these different fingers to play this. So it kind of doesn't help me that to know intellectually it's this set of intervals. So these instruments with a lot of different, we said styles, we said complexity, and then this instrument itself with a lot of different choices, many different choices. They have to learn what's helping them the most? Well, this little dot means this group of notes, and this little dot means this group of notes. And so, oh yeah, I can make sense out of this. Now, let's look at this different kind of instrument. And again, some of you are happy that this is coming up, and some of you are going like, no, not the guitar. But anyway, so here's this instrument. Now, from one fret, one key, this is a G flat, that's a G, that's an A flat. You may notice they look pretty much exactly the same, except they're up or down. So here's that same G flat scale. I just played on the flute. I'm going to play it on the guitarra. And here we go. Guess what? I'm playing the G scale. Look at this. And look, I'm playing the G A flat scale. Almost exactly the same. Almost exactly the same. And so these kinds of instruments would say like, well, why the heck do I have to get the details when I can just play, I can play a C9 and a C sharp 9 and a D9 and it's really not changing. I'm saying it's hard for those people not to read music, but to tag music. I'm getting wrapped up on my headphone here. Here we go. But to tie music into this, this little box of, that dot means this, and there's several other things in there, but that's a general problem. So anyway, so maybe 5% of those instruments, need to read from notes. Just by the way, and pianists, many pianists play without reading notes, and they probably should learn to read notes because more than half of piano music is locked up in notes. And that's fine. And piano has it's a kind of a middle instrument in the sense that you should just go ahead and learn how to read from notes. But here's the point. None of them, orchestral music, orchestras playing in orchestra or playing in a bluegrass band, none of them need the note reading to understand the theory, to understand what they're playing, what they're doing. So in fact, just by the way, again, oboe player here, many classical players have no idea what they're playing. They know, they see a dot, they see a length of time, they put their fingers a certain way. Here's I play the oboe. Here's the A, here's the B flat, and it's like it lasts 3 beats or lasts 2.5 beats or lasts, 3/4 of a beat, whatever. And many of them do not know what they're playing. They don't know if it's the third of the chord or the sixth in the key, if it's Phrygian mode, if it's the minor 2 chord, if it's the sharp 9. They don't know anything about that. They just can play that part on the page. They don't understand anything about the music. Now, again, classical musician here. So obviously, the good and great classical musicians do know those things, but they don't have to because the main job is to play the part. So those people can learn to understand the music from reading notes or not. But I'm just saying it's not remotely a given that the classical player knows what those notes are. So about 5 years ago, I figured out this thing. I don't mean it. I'm not trying to do this one weird trick. I'm just trying to say, so I'm classical. I'm non-classical, playing from chords, just singing. I'm classical, playing straight from notes. And then it's like, hey, I'm, playing a bunch of, jazz and rock and blues and stuff, country, praise and worship, stuff, and from charts, just a regular old chord chart. And slowly, like, wait a minute, seeing the overlap, but then finally putting together, hey, you do not need to read notes, dots on the page to understand how this works. And so about 5 years ago, I started moving, my most of my vocalists, most of my guitar players, bass players, to not reading. Everybody has to learn to read notes. That's the D, that's the E, that's the F. This is just how I teach because I don't want to hurt people. But in terms of the theory, understanding music, and I'm just talking about reading notes, not playing from notes, I can say that's an A, and that's a quarter note, and I can count that rhythm. But all of my pop students, unless they say, man, I really want to be, a great, if you say, I think I'm going to say this in a minute here, but, if you want to be a great, if you want to, be a great, you want to play great in jazz, you want to, play classical music, there's styles that really require you to read from notes. But most people, 90% of people do not really want to do that. I don't mean we're not hurting them. It's just like, that's not their interest. So it's cool, man. You don't have to have the same interests that I do. But anyway, so the point, the people who are never going to read from music, does Eric Clapton read from music? Does, what's his name in, Counting Crows, or what's the, whoever that is, does he read from notes? I don't think so. He could, but the likelihood is small. So the theory part of music, the chords, the scales, the diatonic chords, I teach them all with letters, unless they're a classical musician and need to read from music. If you do read from music, I'm going to keep you reading music. But anyway, the point is, we can learn it all with just letters, and you can learn it all with just letters, and it's not required that you learn to play from notes or sing from notes. So I want to go back to my little diagram, and I just want to give a little bit more examples here. So here, and I had this all perfectly prepared, but it all just blew up in my face. So I'm saying I can tell you how to play a chord type. Here's a major chord, A, C sharp, E, and I'm talking about, who cares what I do? E, there you go. The point is, you can learn this. A minor chord is an A, a C, an E. An A7 chord is an A, a C sharp, an E, a G. Like, you can learn that like that, and that's fine. It's no different than if it's written on notes than if it's written on this little chart. And you can learn, let's say, the diatonic keys. In a song in the key of A. That thing is pausing. Why is it doing that? You see that little thing there? Oh, there it goes. So, like the chords in the key of A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, E, F sharp. Oops, needs to be a minor. F sharp minor. And then G sharp. And it'll take me about an hour to get that little, diminished symbol in there. Just pretend there's a little circle over there, diminished. And I can explain every one of those chords. I can play all those chords. The A, I already said, is a C sharp, and an E. The B minor is a B, a D, an F sharp. Again, I'm not talking about what I can do. I'm talking about what your learning can do. You don't have to read from notes to learn how music works, to understand it fully. And let me just, let's do C sharp minor. C sharp minor is, C sharp, E, G sharp. No, not G3, but G sharp. Look at this. So I'm just, for example, you take these notes that are right here, and you start them on let's see if I can erase that. I don't think I can. Yeah, it's not going to do that. Watch this. I'm going to erase it, though, because I'm like the master. So look, You take those notes. That's so ugly. I'm embarrassed now because that was really ugly. All right, let's do it this way. We're going the wrong direction. It's getting worse. So, okay, here we go. I'm trying to be so slick. It's just really not working. But those notes with an A on the end, those notes, that's Dorian minor. Now it's white. It needs to be red. There you go. Those notes need an A. Sorry, it needs to be an A. Those notes are Dorian minor. If I take those notes and I start on a C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, that is C sharp Phrygian. So all I'm saying is we can learn all that without thinking it all or knowing it all, reading from notes. So, and what I'm trying to do is remove a barrier to those of you who don't read notes. I'm trying to say, hey, you could learn to do this and just, go for it, but understand so much about it. So you want music theory. Music theory is explaining to your left math brain what your right color and ear brain is hearing. So always remember this, your brain is deaf and your ear is igmo. Your ear is ignorant. So your brain is deaf and your ear is ignorant. So what we're trying to do is, your brain is deaf and your ear is ignorant. So what we're trying to do is explain to the brain what you're hearing. You say, hey brain, that was a minor chord. Hey brain, that was a dominant 7 chord, like that. So the ear's hearing perfectly, but it just can't talk and doesn't understand anything. So for everybody, music theory, any instrument, any style, music theory, why do you want to learn music theory? Music theory means knowing what chords are used in a song. I know that a song that's in the key of F has got an F, a G minor, an A minor, B flat major, C major, D minor, and it may have an E diminished because of music theory. And that is, I'm playing a song in the F, I'm rocking, I know what those chords are. Not because I'm brilliant, because I understand music theory, and you can understand it without reading. So understanding music theory means I can play by ear reliably. Because instead of a million billion sounds, it's like, oh no, this song is in the key of D. And that all sounds normal. So there's got to either be a D. I hear some major chord. Oh, it's a major chord. So it's either be a D, a G, or an A, because it's in the key of D. I know that. And then, so it's like you can ad-lib in all the keys, because with one scale, if you're on these, depending on the instrument, right? If you're guitar, the bass, you can play in Mixolydian mode by knowing the if you want to play, G Mixolydian, then you play the C scale starting on G, the same pattern, or put it in C. So, and you can, you're not tied to the music. You're not tied to the chart. I'm talking about, this is another advantage. It's like, so I know what's coming up. I know how this works. And because of music, and when I'm saying my understanding of music, anyone's understanding music. So you do not have to read, and I'm writing a song. What is that cool sound in my head? What is that? Well, that is Dorian minor raised sixth. That's that cool sound coming in my ear. So anyway, so tell me right now. You can leave this in the comments, or you can answer right now. So I have 3 categories of people. I got people. You say, how many people here, or how many people write in here and say, I read music and I use it all the time, constantly. So if that's you, then you put that in there and tell me. And then how many of you read music but you don't use it at all, or you don't use it much? And then lastly, categories is you don't read and it's really, really hurting you. You notice again and again and again, my gosh, I wish I could read, So there, so put that in there. So let's see. So I guess I need to say, this is when you need to like, you need to share, you need to subscribe. Those little buttons on the bottom, I'll say they're probably eternally. And you need to take online or in-studio music lessons with me at Market Dallas Music Lessons. Or you can go to www.dallasmusiclessons.com, and you can just check things out and see what you think. And I just want to mention real quick, last week we talked about how crucial it is to master performing, how no matter how difficult a passage or note is, a song is, not a note, a song or a passage is, we got to make it look easy. We got to make things look like it's easy to do. Talked about how to break down a difficult passage, and about how, practicing well in the detail, think of it as an investment, a growing investment of skill, meaning you take less time to learn things. And we talked about how to comp, and we talked about the difference between beat and meter and groove. They didn't even get to the pocket. Yo, Victor, can't hold no groove if you ain't got no pocket. Okay, so I'll give you bonus points if you know where that's from. All right, so let's see. So the second thing we're going to talk about today, and I didn't realize that went as long as it did, and maybe this one won't go as long. We'll see. But is developing your stage persona. I shouldn't say that. Developing your performance persona. Getting comfortable with singing and playing as if you were playing for others, like putting it in a package. Like, this is a package that I could put in front of other people. And everybody needs to do that. So, in terms of learning this persona, I don't mean a fake, pretending to be somebody else. And there are some famous, both musicians and actors, that say they do that. I'm not talking about that, but rather what I'm saying is, what do you really have inside you that you want to give, that you want to present, and how do we hone that or craft that into a wonderful visual presentation that engages audiences and matches you? And again, remember, performing is a method of playing, and you need to do this every day. It means that, and you should do a segment of your practicing every day. So performing means that you don't stop for mistakes. You package what you're doing. You imagine you're working on this difficult part and you're messing it up and screwing it up, and you're like, and you say, well, what if I had to play this for somebody, what would I do? Now, this is not an academic exercise. This is saying, so you do not have a single, on your playlist on your phone, you do not have a single little snippet of a song, some guy doing the same little lick 300 times in a row, some person or band playing with all kind of pauses and stops and restarts. You don't have anything like that on your phone. On your phone, you got complete good pieces. That's what you're trying to make. You practicing, working on your musician. And as a result of that, what you want to be, you want to practice doing that every day. So we said a part of every practice is you take a part of it or the entire thing, whatever you can do, and you play the whole thing without stopping. Second is what if I had to play this? And so you might do things. Third thing, you might change. You might do it slower. You might only do half of it to get a finished, polished performance of, but you're practicing. This is the package. And you could just be saying, I'm just going to play in my garage like this. Nobody cares, but that's the real thing. And then, yes, as long as you're doing those 1, 2, 3 things, go ahead and adjust how you look or move to present your music to be capturing to an audience. So somebody would look at that and say, whoa, that looks really cool. I wonder what that guy's talking about. I want to be singing about what that girl is doing. So, and that includes if you're just doing it for yourself in your room. That's great. Cool. No problem. So imagine, every day you need to imagine and try to get your pieces in a solid, unified, presentable piece as much as you can. Like I said, you may have to do it slow, half speed, no kidding. You may have to do it just half of it, or just 2 lines of it. But that's right. So stay in your room, but regularly bring what you're working on to a point of presentability. And remember what Megamind said, it's all about presentation. So remember that. Okay, now we're still on that topic. So only extreme extroverts don't have any problems with performing. And that's maybe 10 to 15%. The other 75, 80% do have problems with public performing. And so I already said you should do this every day, whether you're ever plan on performing for others. Don't worry about that. So talking about right at the moment, we had 4 things that you need to perform. You need to perform every day. We had 4 things that you do that make you much better musician. And the 4th one is the visual, but the other 3 are all in the package of performing. And the point of that is We're going to talk about that real quickly. So, yeah, look at that. So let's see. So the first thing, so here you're trying to develop your God, I would say, I don't really think of it as that. Your performance persona. What are you doing as a performer? As a performance, a person who does a performance, again, even if it's just for you. So first off, you know, what, and you have to go beyond just, I can play it. I got it right, finally. you gotta just take it as a given. You have to get past that. So first thing you want to think about is, you know, what am I trying to communicate? What do I think music is about? Is it about sincerity, or about power, or about bringing people in, I love you, or about excitement, or about fun? You know, what is it about? Just think about that a little bit. You know, if you were great, what would you be? I can't stop that. So if you were great, what would you be trying to say out of those things? You know, and other things. You know, you're trying to say, you know, God is awesome, which He is. You know, I don't know. Second thing, this is you developing your performance persona. Second thing is, everybody has to adjust your performance persona to your preferred kind of music. You know, what does your kind of music project? You know, what is its kind of normal groove? And there's a lot of different choices there. So, you know, like, and then I just want to, you know, a quick word about classical music. I'm kind of going to exclude classical music because I got my pipe here in my hand. So I'm reminding you, I have a degree in playing the oboe, and people act like classical music is, I'm talking about including classical musicians, obviously like it's emotionless. It's all about the brain, gigantor brain. I'm a classical musician. My brain is so big. So, you know, and including classical musicians. But actually, classical music is wall-to-wall emotion. I was listening to Beethoven's Sixth Symphony Pastoral, I think it was. Anyway, and the point is, he says on there, you know, like a happy afternoon in the country. You know, so all classical music, the most serious stuff, the heaviest stuff, you know, even atonalities, all about an emotional response. I'm so smart. I'm having a great time. This is fun. This is dark, you know, whatever. So I'm leaving out classical for now, though, because the general vibe is, you know, this is heavy duty. This is serious. It is true. That's the general vibe. And there's people like, just by the way, you know, Yuja Wang or Lang Lang, you know, that break that, you know, intentionally. But, you know, in general, classical vibe is a very straight performance. So we're going to leave that out. So most of what we're looking at is pop. And by which I'm just saying, as far as I'm concerned, that means non-classical music. And if you're a jazz player, you would say pop is non-classical and non-jazz, because jazz is not pop. But I'm just going to say, for my purposes, everything pop is everything except classical. So anyway, so I said you need to look at what does your kind of music do. So I'm just, you know, giving us an example. So like so one vibe is serious bands. We're serious. This is heavy duty. You know, this is the real thing. And like an example here of like, you know, Pink Floyd, I would say is an example of like, this is it. You look at my little photo player here, you know, and, you know, this is heavy. This is real. And another one that's like, as far as I'm concerned, is Snarky Puppy. You know, and I love Snarky Puppy. So it's a serious band. Now I'm talking about, you know, the vibe of the music you like. Is it serious? You know, this is real. This is heavy. This is real. Another vibe from groups and bands, individuals as well as bands, is it's fun. You know, or we're jamming. You know, where's a jam band, and it's like, it was fun. It's, you know, it may be difficult. So there's Corey Wong. You know, so, you know, these guys, what are they like? Look at him. It's like, this is fun. You know, we're having a great time. It may be hard, you know. And here's another one would be like Bruno Mars. You know, this is Silk Sonic, of course. You know, it's like, you know, so it's like the big show. You know, it's a show, and they were just having a great time. And I'm saying, is your music like that? Is that what you're thinking? You know, and here's James Brown. Here he comes. There he is. Look at him. No, that's real, though. I'm saying that's a vibe, right? So look, right there, another shot. So another kind of vibe that you may want to have, thinking about the music that you like, is intimate, personal. I'm sharing my life. I'm telling a story. This is so true. and the listener is saying, yeah, that person understands my struggle. Another group, just as an example, that's like that, is a Snow Patrol. If I lay here, and so here's this guy, like really sincere, right? It's like, this is the truth and intimate. I'm not mocking that. I'm just saying this is the vibe. And then there's groups. This is, do you like this? Here's groups that like the vibe is, I don't know, it's fake. It's like it's fake or it's made up or it's not real. It's not what we're seeing is not what's really going on, but you love it. And so that a group like that would be like Steam Powered Giraffe. It's like, like the people dressing up like that. And I know everybody knows them. I know you guys are all wondering, like, oh yeah, Steam Powered Giraffe. I was listening to it yesterday. No, I'm kidding. But and like David Bowie would be another example. Like here he is performing. And so, you're going like, you can go like, well, why is that guy got his hair like that and he's got this thing on? But he's going for, it's a show. It's a thought process or something you're trying to say. And, is that the kind of music you like? And like this new group, Angine de Poitrine from Quebec, I believe. And no, those guys are serious. You may love that. That may be exactly what you're thinking of is music. And just by the way, if you're a vocalist, you may be. We're talking about vocalists. All this is not about vocalists. It's about everybody. But now, just talking about vocalists real quick. So it's fine for you to adopt and you may need to. You do need to. So if I'm going to sing. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. Sorry about that. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. So I'm trying to get my Frank Sinatra voice, my, you can call it what you want. So I'm trying to get a fuller voice. And then in some other song, I'm rightly going to say, I'm going to go, rocky top, you'll always be home, sweet home to me. And I'm trying to sound like this. I'm trying to sound nasally, because I am matching the style. I'm matching what people who like this music, and back to what does your kind of music, what do they like? These are changes you would want to make or adjustments. And so not, not along about 1825, I left Tennessee very much alive. And I never would have gotten to the Arkansas mud if I hadn't been riding on the Tennessee stud. So there's a bluegrass song sung with either, we could look at his proper voice or an opera voice, And Pavarotti did not sing, Vincero, Vincero, Vincero. He didn't sing it like that, right? And I'm saying, so the kind of music you're doing, performing, requires certain things from all the musicians and from your voice. So, and a couple of more statements just for the vocalist. So there's people like, I call it dead voice or disinterested voice, and this people who sing like it's like I don't really care, and so like one of those would be like Mark Knopfler, and he's singing like and a bunch of people like that's the way you do it on MTV, Sultans of Swing. It's kind of like you don't care, like Echo and the Bunnymen. I know again another group I know you guys are all over listening to all the time. It's kind of like they're singing like. I don't know, it's not like this is boring or something. Not even remotely like this is boring, but it's not like what they're singing like is, I don't know what, this is not, what is it singing like? It's like, I kind of don't care. And it's kind of like, you were like, even Tom Petty sings like that. I'm free. She's a good girl. Loves Elvis. Loves Jesus. Not loves Elvis, loves Jesus. So these are things the vocalist would do. And there's weird, just by the way, weird stylized voices like Alt J. And I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm doing. I don't even know what he's saying. It's like, he sings like this. A guy named Alt J or a band named Alt J. The National. I was carried to Iowa. No, I was carried to Ohio in a swarm of bees. This is, actually lyrics. So real formal voice with odd pauses. And so, and just the last thing, the very last thing for the vocalist is to be a great vocalist, you can do these weird things to your voice. You just can't let them become a habit. So, so as long as these things don't become habits, a vocalist can do all these weird sounds, unusual sounds. So anyway, so back to this thing about what we're talking about. So the third thing that everybody needs to do when they're trying to do to develop a performance persona, no matter what instrument, including the voice, but all these other instruments, is the third thing is, and I really want you to do this, is pick your favorite 2 or 3 groups that you just love. And I want you to watch 5 to 10 of their live performances. And I want you to decide, who do you love? Which of those do you identify with? And you're just like, I just love this. Is it Dave Koff? You're dancing all around. Or is it like, Joe Henderson just dancing just like that? Not talking about the music, but we're talking about the visual. Which of those visuals do you most identify with? And so which of those performance styles seem naturally cool to you? So to recap, again, you developing your performance persona. Number one, what do you want to say? What are you trying to say? I love you. Everything's great. Those kind of things. And then number two is like, establish the limits of your kind of music, even if it's several kinds. I can't be this crazy, or I must be crazy, whatever. And then find performers in the styles that you love. I love this style, and watch their performances and say, oh, that guy's cool. That girl's cool. I love what she's doing. She speaks to me. And then you emulate them. You practice their moves. You practice their styles. And you say, okay, what you cannot look like is like you're disinterested, or you don't care. You can't look like that unless you did, like I said, the Mark Knopfler, disinterested. You emulate them. And because first, it's a mix of performers, it's a mix of performances, and you pick them all, it will be you. It won't be a clone. It won't be somebody else, because you sifted through it. You chose the performers. You looked at the performances. You decided. And what you come up with will be a totally unique blend of styles. It will be you. And just by the way, maybe 15% of people listening to this, you're a natural performer. You don't even know why I'm talking about this, and you don't need this. But so if you're not in that 15% of natural performers, usually either naturally extroverted or extremely extroverted or extremely introverted, those two people seem to be able to perform. The extreme introvert says, like, I don't care that you're here, I'm playing my song. The extreme extrovert says, yeah, come on in and watch me screw up. And so they both work, and everybody else in the middle. This is a very useful thing to do, those 3 points. So I have 2 questions for you about this. And so number one is, how many of you guys have trouble performing for others? That this is a difficulty, this is an issue. And so put that in the comments for me so I can know, you have problems with performing. And the second thing is, does anyone have some ideas on learning how to be yourself while performing, and things that have worked for you? And that would be a great thing to put in the comments and help people. So, okay. So this is Mark Black, and this is the Q&A to play and sing. This is number 82, which is all wonderful things. So today we talked about, basically, you don't have to read notes to understand music fully, and you can develop your own stage persona. Man, why am I performance persona. You can develop your own, and it'll be great. And ask 5 questions, and put it, they're saying here, I want to know, you read music, use it constantly. You know, and it'd be good if you said what style it was. You know, I'm playing classical, so of course. You know, number two, you read music, but you don't use it much. And what style you're playing in. And number three, you don't read, but it's really hurting you that you don't read, you know, and what style you're playing. And that could explain some things. And then we talked about in terms of developing your performance persona, said it correctly. How many of you guys have trouble performing for others? And then does anyone have some great ideas about how to learn to be yourself when you're performing? So, and just put that in the comments, and that'll be great. And so now, and remember, you can email me at mark@dallasmusiclessons with questions or comments. But you know, put it in the what do you call it thing, chat thing right there. So so listen, I want you to have a great week, and I want you. Let's see, it's going to take a second to get this set up. Yeah, I'm going to get it set up. Watch me. I'm so cool. I'm one of the coolest. Not really. There we go. So I want you to have a great week, and I want you to remember to have fun and to be awesome. That isn't right.
Have fun. Be awesome. I said like, subscribe. You know you should. Oh yeah. Have fun. Be awesome. Like, subscribe. Have fun. Be awesome. You know you should. Have fun.